I want to take a few moments to go over what's going through my head as a clinician in kind of those first 15 minutes or so of a patient encounter. And I was thinking about this more because just a little while ago, we were asked to do what they call like movement screens or injury screens for a local CrossFit affiliate. And I just wanted to give everyone a little insight into how I organize my thinking when I'm doing these with people. So, first there's a time pressure. You only get 15 minutes to talk to the person because there's going to be somebody else right after them. And when I'm done, the question kind of came up, like, how do you decide what to do with a person so quickly? And there's this honest answer is, like, I'm not trying to diagnose everything or even anything really in that moment. I'm just trying to organize the uncertainty that the person has that is asking me what to do about what's bothering them. So, I'm getting close to 20 years of clinical work, and I've been around the CrossFit space for about 20 years as well. And a lot of this stuff doesn't come consciously to me anymore as I'm going through this stuff, but I do kind of have around 5 steps that I have basically like a checklist as I'm going through my 15 minutes with a person. And it's always there, even if I'm not thinking about it anymore, or even if I ever understood that I was doing it. But I just took time today to kind of look through some of this stuff and think about it and try to make it a little more clear. So, step one as the person comes to me is try to reduce uncertainty. I'm not trying to eliminate uncertainty. I'm trying to reduce uncertainty for them. So they're going to walk over to me, and they're coming over with more than just like shoulder pain or knee pain. They have uncertainty about these issues because they've probably been bothering for a long time. They've likely had an MRI done, seen 1 or 2 other therapists and medical doctors, and they may have had some other sorts of treatments done, and they might be becoming terrified that every time they're training, they're making themselves worse. So the first thing I'm trying to do is reduce that uncertainty in their mind. And I don't want to pretend that I know everything in 15 minutes. That's not genuine, and it's not going to come across very well. I just need to help them take everything they're giving me and start putting it into perspective as quickly and easily as I can. So after that, the second step is finding the biggest levers I can pull. I don't need to solve everything right now, and I don't have time to. I'm just looking for 1 to 3 things that are most likely to help them move the needle now. And if you've been in the CrossFit space and any training space, but that's just kind of where I spent the most of my time. And we were at a CrossFit gym, so I'm already thinking about their pressing, their pulling, their hanging, their front rack shapes. What do they do for work? What do they do when they're not at the CrossFit affiliate? How is their sleeping, training volume? Do they have recent changes in training volume and intensity? Do they have previous injuries I need to run through quick with them? And having that 20 years of experience in this community and having taught lots of workshops over the world in this community over the years, it helps me narrow where to start looking. So I don't already know the answer, but my experience helps me ask better first questions so we can start getting to work as soon as we can. Step 3 is making anything I give them independently actionable. That's an important piece of this. I think something that's lost on people that are doing these kinds of movement screens or injury screens. There's something I'm going to refuse to do always, and that is I'm not going to make someone feel like they need me every day to get better. If the plan I'm giving them or the levers I'm giving them to pull are only going to work if they're standing in front of me at my office, then it's not the best first plan. I want people leaving and they have things that they can go home and actually do on their own repeatedly, consistently. And that is because that's how we build capacity, through frequency and consistency. A lot of things work, especially if the patient or the person will go home and do them. Fourth step is make sure that I create somewhat of a successful experience. And this is where a lot of things get lost. They're trying to make a perfect program for a person, but I'm just trying to help them create that first little taste of success that they may not have had in maybe even years sometimes around this problem. And maybe it's just one exercise. Maybe it's, changing quickly how they get warmed up before class. Maybe it's just making a quick suggestion on volume reduction. It doesn't have to be a big thing. And it might just be making sure that they can squat without making things feel worse. But what those things do is help create momentum, and then momentum builds confidence, and that leads to more success. And confidence and success will help them change their behaviors. And then as their behaviors change, then the outcome will start to improve. And then, kind of that fifth step is I want to make sure that they leave talking to me those 15 minutes more confident than when they got there. And to me, that's the biggest success of any of these kinds of things, is not giving them any perfect diagnosis, not solving 6 months of their shoulder pain in a 15-minute window. If the person leaves thinking, I think I know what I can do next, then we have had a good day. And my goal, anytime I walk into these kinds of situations, is that not necessarily that I'm trying to get that person to come into the clinic to see me. That's not really what's going through my head at all. My question is a lot simpler when I'm working this person is, did they leave talking to me with something useful that they can go do? That's what I'm trying to do. And if that is true, whether they become a patient or not in the future, I have done my job in those 15 minutes. And the irony of that is many of those people will turn around and eventually call the clinic. And it's not because they felt like I sold them on anything. It's because they felt like I was able to help them. And that is powerful. So every time a screen is over, one of the lines I like to use is I look at them and I say, hey, I gave you some big levers I think you can start pulling right now for the next 30 days. And I don't say forever. I just say, 30 days. Just be consistent and frequent with those things, and let's see what happens. And then we can gather more information down the road. And let's let your body show us something. And I just try to be honest and practical about it. And that's usually enough to start get things moving. So to me, if you do these things, the goals of these injury screens isn't to solve the problem for the person. It's to help them organize the uncertainty they came to you with into some sort of plan that they can start doing today. And that is all you're trying to do, is help them reduce the level of uncertainty that they came to you with. Find some big levers, make them easy and actionable, and then get them to create an early win in the situation, and then leave them more confident than when they came to you. Everything else can get figured out later. And just kind of the last little thought on this is, my experience over all these years working in clinics and doing this kind of stuff doesn't eliminate my uncertainty. It just helps me organize uncertainty into action.